My fiancé and my younger sister became involved on the day of our engagement. I overheard them declaring their love for each other, which almost made me sick to my stomach. William and I had been in a long-distance relationship for 7 years, from our sophomore year until now. Susan had been following me around, calling William brother for those 7 years. To me, they had always seemed like siblings. William treated her like a sister, but Susan's true feelings for him were ambiguous. Susan is my younger sister from a different mother. My parents divorced early, and my dad, who had always doted on me because of my talent, was focused on me. Susan was adorable when she was young, with chubby cheeks and a habit of drooling. She loved sleeping while hugging me. However, as she grew older, around kindergarten age, she was no longer cute. She would occasionally adopt a look of grievance, blaming me for things that weren't my fault. She would say things like, "Dad, if you want to hit someone, hit me. I'm so scared when you two fight. Sister likes it, so give it to her." I didn't mean to. Can sister forgive me? At that time, I didn't understand what manipulation was. How could such a young child have ulterior motives? Yet, my dad's attitude towards me changed from good to bad, worsening over time, especially since my stepmother was Susan's biological mom. My position at home became increasingly precarious. I worked harder at studying and dancing, hoping my dad would love me more, but it was to no avail. My dad always thought I was bullying Susan, while she endured silently. Did you think I wasn't wary of Susan while dating William? It was fine for the first 2 years. I was in college, and she was in high school. By the time I graduated, she started making moves as she entered college. Every weekend, when William and I had a date, she would tirelessly try to contact me, claiming sisterly affection. I tried to distance myself from her, but she would cry and say, "Sister, do you not like me anymore? What did I do wrong? Tell me, and I'll change. I'm so sad when you treat me like this." I would roll my eyes, and she would continue. William would mediate, saying Susan was still young, liked following me, and should be allowed to do so. He would ask me not to be so harsh on Susan. We argued about this several times. He said I was unreasonable and shouldn't argue with a child, while I said he didn't understand anything and had no right to intervene. We almost broke up, but didn't. Later, when Susan clung to me, William remained silent, letting me handle it. I'm a dancer named Sue and work at the Provincial Cultural and Arts Troupe, considered a pillar of the troupe. William works in it as a programmer, who has already become a project manager in a private company, young and promising, with thick hair. Everyone around us said we were a perfect match, and countless people asked when our engagement ceremony would be. Before getting married, we had to have an engagement ceremony first. William and I booked a hall at a local 5-star hotel, choosing it for its duplex structure. It had bright crystal chandeliers, a long spiral staircase, the first floor for entertaining guests, and the second floor for dressing rooms and lounges. I was touching up my makeup in the dressing room. My sister's dress looked amazing, highlighting all her strengths, unlike me, who wore t-shirts and jeans every day. This lipstick matched her so well. Is this what they call a man killer? I'm so clumsy, I don't know how to apply makeup. Sister, can you teach me in the future? I asked, looking at her through the mirror. Okay, she replied, looking ecstatic. Often, I couldn't tell if she was genuinely naive or just pretending. After all these years, I didn't like her. It was obvious. How could she still pretend to be so close to me? Sue, it's almost time. I'm going downstairs to be with Mom and Dad, Susan said, rushing out and leaving the makeup artist staring in amazement. Sue, your sister is so lively and naive. Everyone is dressed elegantly at this event, but she is wearing a t-shirt and jeans, the makeup artist remarked. I smiled without responding. Some things are better left unsaid to outsiders. William was late picking me up, and no one answered the phone. I called a friend downstairs, who told me he had already gone upstairs a while ago. Gone upstairs for a while? A woman's intuition is truly mysterious. At that moment, my mind was filled with thoughts of Susan. Without hesitation, I got up and walked out, swaying my dress. Next to the dressing room was a lounge, with the door slightly ajar. I could hear voices coming through it. I walked over and heard William saying, "This is the last time I'll call you a brother. From now on, you'll be my brother-in-law. I feel so sad. Sister is so happy being able to marry you. You're such a good person. Sister must have saved the galaxy in her past life." Susan responded, "Brother, what should we do? I really like you." William said, "Susan, don't do this. Sister and I are about to have our engagement ceremony." The room fell silent. I hesitated for a moment, then pushed open the door. The two of them were on the couch, with William kissing Susan passionately, one hand not staying within appropriate bounds under Susan's dress. My whole body felt frozen. This was supposed to be the scene of our engagement. Did they have no shame? Susan was the first to notice me. They scrambled to get up from the couch, one with hair resembling a bird's nest, the other with a suit so crumpled it was hard to look at. "Sister, it's not what you think." "Sue, let me explain," William said quickly, standing in front of Susan. Their strategic positions were too obvious. When did these two really start? Even if today was the tipping point, they must have been flirting for a long time. I looked at Susan, trying to force a smile. "It's not what I think? It's what I saw." And to William, I sneered, "Your words say a no, but your actions are quite honest. The engagement ceremony today doesn't need to be cancelled, just change the bride." On the bride's side. "William, we're done. Consider it as if I never knew you." I turned and left, tears streaming down my face. In an instant, years of love easily swept away. Susan followed me out, grabbing me and falling to her knees, slapping herself across the face. The sharp smack echoed through the room downstairs, leaving only Susan's pleading cries to fill the vast space. "Sister, forgive me." And William, this time it wasn't intentional. I was mentally prepared to call him brother-in-law. "We didn't do anything wrong. Please believe me, and let's proceed with your engagement properly, okay?" Her words made me laugh out of anger. With a situation like this, how could we continue with the engagement? Should we ignore the glaring act at hand? William stood by the door of the lounge, unmoving, watching me and Susan, though mostly Susan, with a look of pity in his eyes. My heart sank further and further. How did I not realize before that you two had reached a point where you couldn't control your feelings? You two are quite something. Furious, I turned and ran downstairs in my 9-inch high heels and long skirt with a wide hemline. I lifted my skirt in front, but it was stepped on from behind, making me tumble down the stairs like a rolled-up dumpling. The pain in my body felt more real than any screams. Everyone rushed to my side. I struggled to stand up, only to realize my right ankle couldn't move. As a dancer, I knew the difference between a sprain and a fracture. A chill ran through my heart. "Quick, take me to the hospital," I said. It was the darkest moment of my life. In one day, I lost my lover and my career. My ankle was shattered. The doctor said I needed surgery with a steel plate and might never dance again. In the hospital room, several dancers from the troupe turned away, wiping away tears. William blamed himself, kneeling by my bedside and repeatedly promising to take care of me for a lifetime. Susan stood at the ward door, crying continuously, occasionally glancing at William like a wronged little wife. I ignored them. My stepmother, unable to bear it, felt sorry for her daughter. "It wasn't your sister who pushed you down. Why are you making such a fuss? It's just a lost leg for you, but for her, it's a lost love." I felt nothing but ashes in my heart, not just towards William, but towards the whole family. I looked at my stepmother calmly. "If William prefers her, can I break her leg for you?" Since that day, there was no need for me to pretend with my stepmother. Our only interaction was when she told my dad to inform me that she had packed up all my belongings from childhood to adulthood, so I should move out. She wanted to free up my room for other uses. I nodded and handed my house key to my dad, asking him to help me move my things so as not to take up their space. William came to see me every 2 or 3 days, and I ignored him, telling him to leave. He would silently cut fruit for me, pour water for me, saying that once I recovered, we would get our marriage certificate, and he would take care of me for a lifetime. Susan, on the other hand, came every day, crying and asking for forgiveness. I told her to leave, and she would kneel down, wailing, fearing that others might not realize how wrong she felt. Whether by coincidence or something else, William witnessed her kneeling several times. When he looked at her, he had the same look of pity as that day, but when he looked at me, he seemed hesitant, almost asking me to treat Susan better. In the end, the two of them transitioned from leaving one after the other to leaving together, no longer bothering to hide their feelings. The other patients started commenting about William, from initially saying, "Your boyfriend seems nice," to "Your sister's boyfriend is good. He's so caring towards you," the elder sister. What could I say? Could I admit that I had sacrificed one leg to fulfill this couple? I highly urged them to leave. Please, both of you, just leave. Instead of coming here to put on a show, why not go on a date and roll around in bed? Didn't we leave things unfinished last time? Susan, please don't be like this. William and I are just friends. We didn't do anything. If it bothers you, we won't have any contact in the future. I rolled my eyes. Stop it. For the rest of my life, please don't show up in front of me again. Susan started crying again. William pulled her away and left without looking back. My father had put the packed items in my living room. 4 woven bags filled with clothes, books, photo frames, simple skincare products, slippers, toothpaste, and chargers, all haphazardly thrown together. I used my good leg to pick out the useful things and then called the recycling station to pick up the old clothes and books. My connection with that family ended after 22 years when they removed everyone from the family photo except me. I transferred some money to my father, thanking him for raising me. The Cultural and Art Museum offered me a new office job, which was not tiring and very leisurely. After finishing work each day, I would lean on my cane and go watch my former partners dance. Dancing had always been my destiny, more important to me than William. That's why I despised Susan. If she hadn't stepped on my dress that day, I wouldn't have fallen down the stairs at all. The envy and loneliness in my eyes were glaringly obvious in the mirror at the practice room. Sue, come here. The deputy leader personally introduced me to a part-time job at a children's art center opened by his friend. They needed someone to instruct 6 dance classes on weekends, hoping I could help by demonstrating movements and training the teachers if there was time. I was hesitant at first, but he said, "Consider it a break. Your dancing skills are profound. It's a waste not to use them. Talented people can shine anywhere, not just on stage. Sue, they need you." The dance class job filled my weekends, making them busy and fulfilling, with no time to dwell on other things. The innocent smiles and lively eyes of the children were both life and redemption for me. I understood the deputy leader's good intentions. The weight of life that's too heavy to bear will eventually force you to accept it and compromise in the most appropriate way. 1 month after leaving the hospital, I discarded my cane. As long as I didn't engage in strenuous exercise, my mobility was no different from a normal person's. I still longed to dance and practiced basic skills, demonstrating them to the children without bearing weight on my right ankle. Occasionally, I would cautiously test my right foot's condition, holding on to a glimmer of hope. What if I could dance again? 6 months later, on a Saturday night, I had an interaction with another man named Peter. There was no class that evening, so I was practicing choreography alone, trying to see if I could jump. With the new year approaching, the art center was preparing for a performance, and I was choreographing a dance for the children. During a simple jump, I specifically controlled the height, but my right ankle still couldn't handle it. I fell to the ground, and Peter rushed in, half kneeling in front of me, anxiously asking how I was. We weren't familiar with each other, he was just a relative of one of my students who had been picking up the child at that time. He cared more about the child's dancing than the child's mother, always inquiring about the child's condition after school. That day, something unusual happened. When Peter rushed to me, my attention shifted from my foot to his shoes. Shoes weren't allowed in the practice room, yet he was wearing shiny leather shoes. Seeing me stare at them, he quickly took them off and held them in his hand, smiling with his whole face. Relax, I've never seen someone like you who's injured but still concerned about keeping the floor clean. Seems like it doesn't hurt anymore. Do you want me to take you to the hospital? My ankle was fine, the pain had eased since the initial moment, and I seemed able to bear it. I didn't need to go to the hospital. Peter helped me change shoes at the doorway, then took my coat and bag from the shelf for me. He casually mentioned that his nephew was learning painting here on Saturday evenings, as if to explain why he was here at night. He reminded me to use my right foot less, take care of the injury, and not worsen the situation. Finally, he helped me downstairs and watched me get into a ride-hailing car, apologizing, if I didn't have to pick up the child, I would have taken you home. I didn't pay much attention to his words and had no intention of letting a stranger take me home, so I simply thanked him and left. That evening, I chose a robot figurine online. The following week, when Peter came to pick up the child. Again, after asking about the child's dancing performance as usual, I took out the figurine box from my bag. Thank you for your help last week. He was surprised. It was just a small favor. Do you really need to thank me like this? Are you afraid of owing favors to people? It's just a small token of my appreciation, I said. I happened to see it while shopping and didn't know if you would like it. I'm not sure which words resonated with him, but he accepted the small box with a smile. I like it. At that moment, several children who hadn't left yet rushed over, including his niece. Teacher, do we have one too? We want a gift too. Their eager eyes looked at me, and I couldn't help but smile. I smiled and took out lollipops, chocolates, and fish sausages from my bag to share with the children. Their faces lit up with joy as they eagerly grabbed the treats and scattered around. Peter, watching the scene with a smile, asked, "Did I make you spend money?" I shook my head. I bought these for them in the first place. Since becoming a teacher at the organization, I often buy small snacks as extra rewards. After receiving your gift, Sue, let me treat you to dinner. I'm sorry, but I already made plans with someone else, I replied. To my surprise, half an hour later, I found myself sitting in a nearby steakhouse, cutting meat with a knife and fork, taking small bites. Peter stood with the child next to my table. What a coincidence, he said, pointing to the couch across from me. Your company didn't show up? I smiled calmly. He had something come up last minute. You don't mind, do you? He gestured toward the couch again. What could I say? I could only smile and say, it's better to meet by chance than by appointment. Peter was more talkative and humorous compared to me, which made me feel a bit out of my depth. His niece, Cindy, kept glancing at him with curious eyes. I followed her gaze, and Peter chuckled. After maintaining a parental image for so long, it's hard to return to normal. The child isn't used to it, he explained. Cindy snorted through her nose. Peter showed a feigning expression, ruffling Cindy's head. Cindy rolled her eyes and snorted again. I felt a twinge of envy at their family atmosphere. Since my mom left my dad, I had no contact with her. My dad's attention was solely on my stepmother and Susan. In the evening, I received a friend verification message from Peter. He had added me through the business card push from Cindy's mom, which was how I learned his name. He sent a photo of the robot figurine I had given him, placed on his desk next to a corner of a laptop. Thank you. I really like it. You're welcome, I replied. After that, Peter would occasionally like my posts on social media, and sometimes I'd return the favor. Through these interactions, I unexpectedly discovered that he knew the leader and deputy leader of our provincial art troupe, and their relationship seemed quite good. However, what Peter did wasn't apparent from his social media posts. He might have restricted some posts from my view. William occasionally checked in with me through messages. How's your foot doing? Much better, thank you. Although we could no longer be lovers, we didn't need to be enemies. I never blocked him or considered doing so because adult estrangements often drift apart. It was Susan who continued to post affectionate messages and messaged me privately to seek forgiveness. Sister, can you forgive me? Sister, you're so great, many other guys like you, but I only have William. I can't leave him. Sister, which ring do you think looks better? She sent a photo of a string of diamond rings, one almost identical to the engagement ring I had back then. I felt a bit suffocated every time Susan sent a message seeking forgiveness and showing off her relationship. I replied with a single sentence. She would mostly respond with how good I was and how much she loved me. On this particular day, she replied, Sister, you must be angry with what I said. I feel so sad. After all, it's the room you lived in for more than 10 years. I rolled my eyes, turned off the screen, cursed her under my breath, and looked out the window. Peter chuckled softly beside me. I turned to him, silently accusing. You're enjoying yourself when someone else is upset? Do you know, he said, when you roll your eyes, you look even more lively and cute than usual? I immediately retorted, Are you driving, wondering how even my eye rolling could be so obvious? Peter didn't reply but pursed his lips, a slight smile playing at the corner of his mouth. Cindy, sitting in the back, piped up, Sue, my uncle wishes he had a pair of eyes on you. Peter smiled, glancing at Cindy through the rearview mirror. I turned around, pretending to be serious. Kids, don't talk nonsense. I'm not talking nonsense, Cindy retorted, looking at Peter provocatively and mimicking the tone of an adult. My mom said that how old are you? Can't even chase girls properly, have to use your niece as a shield. I felt embarrassed on the spot. Peter wasn't completely at ease either. He raised his left hand, resting it on the window frame, rubbed his temple, and tried to lighten the awkward atmosphere with a smile. Caught red-handed, huh? He glanced at me and changed the subject. Sue, don't you remember me? I really didn't remember. It was only after Peter had half reminded, half directly stated, that I recalled a year when after every performance, someone would send a basket of flowers. The signature on those baskets was Peter's. Back then, we had actually met once. After one performance, Peter, accompanied by the troupe leader, personally invited me to perform at their company's annual meeting, promising good compensation. I declined, stating the reason directly, I had to visit my boyfriend's hometown to meet his parents. After that, neither Peter nor his flower baskets appeared again. It hit me like a thunderbolt. Did you think, Sue, now that you're in my car, can I finally succeed in pursuing you? Peter asked with a playful smile. The thunderbolt in my heart slowly dissipated, replaced by a sense of relief tinged with disappointment. I was just an ordinary woman with desires like anyone else, yearning for someone to like me. Who was I compared to a star? I chuckled at myself, shifting my gaze outside the window. Outside, the city lights were coming on. Now, I was just a dancer who might never set foot on stage again, an administrative staff member at the provincial arts troupe, and a teacher at a children's art institution. You're the brightest, Peter's voice sounded again, deep and slow, as if he had pondered it for a while. Sue, shall we give it a try? The enclosed space of the car was quiet. I pondered for a moment before saying, okay. Peter turned out to be a perfect boyfriend. Every morning, he would drive halfway across the city, bringing fresh flowers to pick me up for work. In the afternoon, he would pick me up after work. We'd have dinner together, and then he'd drive me home. This routine was consistent from Monday to Friday. On weekends, when I worked at the art gallery, he would spend the entire day with me. He would either work on his laptop in the parents' rest area, occasionally glancing at the monitors, or stand in the corridor by the classrooms, sneakily watching me. Honestly, this kind of care and attention was something I had never experienced from William. It was sweet. The troupe leader teased me after seeing Peter several times, not easy to be patient and see the moon emerge from the clouds. The deputy leader chimed in, when's the wedding banquet? I didn't know how to respond. My relationship with Peter was just beginning, and marriage seemed a long way off. However, Peter smoothly continued, thanks for the well wishes. I'll keep working hard, and you, please say a few more good words for me, help me bring Sue home sooner. The troop leader and the deputy leader both looked at me with meaningful glances, as if saying, "You can do it." I was non-committal. The troop leader asked me in private, "Are you really clueless or just pretending?" I was perplexed. The troop leader had to point out that Peter was a famous wealthy bachelor, worth billions, ruthless in the business world, but with a soft spot for me. I should seize the opportunity. I, on the other hand, hesitated. I knew Peter was well off from his car, attire, and mannerisms, but I hadn't realized the extent until now. I felt undeserving and subconsciously wanted to retreat, unsure of what to do. Our relationship had hit a stalemate. I didn't want to commit, and he didn't want to step back. We were more than friends, but not yet lovers. Once, a receptionist at the Children's Art Institution chatted with me about Peter. "Peter is so handsome and elegant. He really cares about you. Every time he's here, while other parents are focused on their children, he's always watching you, his fondness written all over his face. The last time you fell, his face turned pale instantly. Before we could react, he had already rushed out, not even taking his phone. It's true love." I remembered that incident when Peter rushed into the dance studio, half kneeling in front of me, first nervous, then smiling, asking if I was okay. He effortlessly explained why he was there, helped me get dressed, carried my bag, and escorted me downstairs, but avoided accompanying me home, so considerate. "When did you start having designs on me?" I sat in his car that night and asked with a smile. "I heard you were single," Peter replied, not shying away from the topic. I felt I couldn't miss this chance any longer. Instead of waiting for someone else to make you happy, I thought I should take a shot. I believe I can do it better than most men. His voice grew deeper. "I was afraid you might make a wrong choice, settling for someone inferior to me, and even more afraid that I would regret it." In the background, Nordic folk music played ethereally and chilly. I looked at him. It was the most heartfelt confession I had ever heard. "Peter, I'd like to go see a movie." "Okay." At the movie theater, I allowed him to kiss me. Sometimes, in relationships between men and women, crossing a certain threshold just naturally leads to the next step. Peter was apparently a kissing enthusiast. Every morning, after handing me a rose, the next thing he'd do was lean in and peck my lips. After I got in the car with my seatbelt fastened, he'd lean in for another peck. Laughing, I said, "That's enough," in public. He chuckled and touched his mouth, still seemingly not satisfied. I've been thinking all this time, those few kisses just didn't feel enough. What to do? I didn't bother responding. He continued on his own, "Sue, why do you smell so good?" Jokingly, I said, "Probably just mouthwash." He joined in the laughter. When we arrived below the arts troupe building, the familiar routine repeated, kisses, kisses, kisses. "You've got to control yourself. Everyone you know is watching," I lightly pushed him away. "Everyone in the troupe knows I'm pursuing you. What's there to control?" Peter said, embracing my waist tighter with one hand. "Besides, I've already exercised a lot of self-control. If I didn't." His words trailed off as his gaze dropped to my lips. My heart pounded fast, and my mind filled with inappropriate yet beautiful imagery. I almost wanted to run away. A low chuckle came from behind. I never knew that being in a relationship with a mature man could be so sweet, even sweeter than a first love. With Peter, he knew exactly when to act and when not to, giving me the utmost agency. In his words, "After taking 99 steps, I'll extend my hand on the final step. You just have to place your hand in mine." And that final step, he would still take it, as long as I didn't retreat. It would all be fine. Under the night sky, beneath a towering clock tower, Peter held me close, regret lacing his voice. "I missed you for so many years." At that point, I was already heading towards William's hometown, meeting my boyfriend's parents. "If you showed up now, you'd be a homewrecker," I mumbled in his arms. Remember, we hadn't even reached the point of meeting each other's parents yet. It was as if I were a thorn in his side as he held me even tighter, his nose rubbing against mine. Apart from seeking my wife's opinions, my marriage doesn't need to concern anyone else. Whoever it is, they're just being informed. So, wife, when do you plan to marry me? I remained silent. I decided to retract my assessment of him being a mature man. We had only taken 999 steps of those agreed upon 1,000 steps, and he was already trying to step over the last one, assuming the title of a wife, without consulting me. Are you with someone else now? William's booming voice echoed over the phone, interrogating me without even using my name. I was taken aback. William, we've been broken up for so long. You and Susan have a child. Can't I have a boyfriend? I shot back. What child? Have you forgotten we're engaged? It was you hugging Susan that day, wasn't it? We broke up. We broke up on that very day. You're not suited for double dealing like this. What breakup? When did I ever agree to break up? You've been the one avoiding me all this time. Peter directly took the phone from my hand, not mincing words. William, right? I'm Peter, Sue's current boyfriend. Please refrain from harassing my girlfriend, or I'll have to call the police. I didn't know how William reacted. As Peter finished speaking, he hung up and promptly blocked William's number. I looked at him in astonishment. That's my phone. Did you just block someone without my consent? He smiled. Sometimes a girlfriend needs to listen to her boyfriend. He returned the phone to me. It was the first time I glimpsed his possessive side. William and Susan must have seen me with Peter on the same day, because after William's call the previous day, the next day, Susan showed up at my doorstep, outside the practice room of the art institution. When I saw her standing just half a step behind Peter, chatting as if they were just finishing up a conversation, a smile bright on her face, my heart skipped a beat. I had lost to her once before, and I was afraid she was trying to repeat history. What are you here for? I was full of hostility, even more so than when she used to pester me and William. Peter walked up to me, turned to look at Susan with a raised eyebrow, as if inquiring. Susan looked full of grievances. Sister, I miss you. It's been so long since I last saw you. Mom and Dad miss you too. When are you going back? She looked at Peter pleadingly and stuttered, Peter, please talk to Sis for me. I couldn't swallow my anger and turned to leave. Peter caught up to me and asked if I was mad at him for talking to other women. I'm not mad at you. I'm just uncomfortable, I sighed and said sourly. Peter, we've just met, and now we're already brother and sister. I didn't ask her to call me sister. Peter smirked smugly. Sue, are you jealous? How about you also call me brother? I glared at him. He continued, if you call me brother, I guarantee no one else in the world would dare to call me that. I rolled my eyes at him, looking at his serious expression, and couldn't help but laugh. What a twisted sense of humor. Such a disgusting nickname. As it turned out, Peter indeed had a twisted sense of humor. Much later, at specific times or occasions, like when we argued or made love, this nickname was like a switch. Susan took a liking to Peter. Over the years, whenever I had something, she would look up to it, and most of the time, she would snatch it away. After that meeting, she often ran to the art institution on weekends, ostensibly to seek forgiveness from me, but in reality, she was just trying to get close to Peter. Sue, be careful of your little sister. She's like a tea serpent, Peter warned. I've rejected her many times, but she's still swooping in. I grunted an acknowledgement. The time I spent with Peter wasn't as long as the time with William back then, but for some reason, I had confidence in him. Men of his caliber, if they wanted pretty women, could easily have them with a wave of their hand. He didn't disappoint my confidence in him. I don't like it when others call me that. Susan, you better call me Peter or brother-in-law. Even though you're Sue's sister, please have some self-respect. Whether I'm good or not has nothing to do with you. I don't want Sue to misunderstand. I'm not your William. Your tactics won't work on me. I can distinguish between a stone and a gem quite clearly. These words were relayed to me by the receptionist, along with some flattery. Sue, Peter is so handsome. He talks to Susan with a commanding presence. I've never seen a man reject a woman so decisively. You should get married soon. After Susan hit a wall with Peter, she turned to me for conquest, determined not to give up. She cried in front of the parents picking up their children, asking if I was still mad at her because I was blaming her, and that's why brother-in-law was ignoring her. She said she realized her mistake, that she only had one sister, and nothing was more important than her sister. She asked how she could be forgiven. Did she have to kneel down and kowtow? She cried so hard, as if she was about to faint the next second. Many onlookers were pointing fingers. Sue, forgive her. How can siblings hold grudges? Isn't it natural for an older sister to give in to her younger sister? I laughed in exasperation. Who said the older sister must give in to the younger sister? What if the younger sister is a scoundrel? I looked at the crowd. The best way to deal with green tea was to accuse publicly. At my engagement ceremony, my sister went to confess her love to my fiancé, and they rolled on the couch, caught in infidelity. My sister stepped on my skirt, causing me to tumble down the stairs and break my leg. I, a dancer, unable to perform. What did it mean? She acted aggrieved and delicate, frequently kneeling to apologize, forcing me to forgive her. Would you dare to have such a sister? I pointed at Susan. Her mother said I only lost a leg, what she lost was love. I just couldn't understand. She was the third party. On what basis did she have to call it love? Even more ridiculous, while I was still in the hospital, she was going in and out with my fiancé. She asked her mother to kick me out of the house, wanting to turn my room into their lover's nursery. After several months of no contact, now that she saw I had a new boyfriend, she came back. My voice grew louder, speaking the truth in anger. Susan, have some shame. The spectators shook their heads, seeing through Susan's deceitful tears. Can't believe it. She's crying so pitifully. It turns out she was pretending. Being a third party and pushing Sue down the stairs. Such a person deserves public condemnation. So Sue didn't follow through, she had stepped too far. Did seeing Sue with a good man make her want to seduce a new brother-in-law? Shameless. The biggest difference between acquaintances and strangers is that acquaintances, bound by courtesy, would only gossip behind one's back. Strangers, if they insult, it's harder to bear. So, at the engagement ceremony back then, many people looked uneasy but remained silent. Susan ran off, covering her face. Peter stood firmly by my side, his face with a cool expression, one hand resting on my waist. Seeing William again, it had been a full 10 months since our last meeting. He looked more haggard than ever, with deep dark circles under his eyes, cracked lips, and a cut on his chin from shaving. If not for his clean attire, well-groomed hair and shoes, and holding a bouquet of roses, I would have thought he had just come out of a coal mine. Sue, let's make amends. William rushed over, handing me the roses along with a jewelry box. His colleagues, who had witnessed the last drama, gave me a curious look. I nodded, wanting to make it clear to William. William, we have no relationship anymore. Please don't disturb me. The flowers and jewelry, you should give them to Susan. I have no interest in being a third party. I have a date with my boyfriend. He's coming soon. William frowned, only now realizing that I was the one he truly loved. He said he had already broken up with Susan, that she was a jinx. Ever since being with her, he had been unlucky. His colleagues ostracized him, he lost projects, and nothing was going right. He said I was his lucky charm, that when we were together, everything in his work seemed to fall into place, and he hoped to start anew. He opened the jewelry box, a sparkling diamond ring, the same one prepared for our engagement but left unused. Susan had once taunted me with this ring, saying, "Leave this ring for someone else." I don't need it. It turned out, hearing someone speak when you no longer love them is torture. So, when Peter showed up at the company door, I almost lit up. I had only one thing to say to William, "Sorry, my boyfriend is here." If everything goes smoothly, I will marry him. So don't come looking for me anymore. Peter and William, honestly, I had never compared them before, but at that moment, seeing both of them together, the only word in my mind was downgrade. Peter's tall figure, along with his face, exuded the word elite from both inside and out, while William, with empty eyes, looked like he hadn't slept in days. More importantly, William seemed to recognize Peter. His eyes showed hesitation, mostly disbelief, and finally, he stammered, Peter. Then quickly left. This time, even I couldn't understand. Is this your way of scaring off a rival? I asked Peter. He didn't answer my question, changing the subject. I just heard someone say they're going to marry me. That was just a strategy. Mere words. Don't take it seriously. Peter, this is not a strategy, I said, my voice wavering slightly. Peter reached into his pocket and pulled out a jewelry box. He took out a ring, one he had clearly kept for this moment. Put it on first, so we can shoo away the flies. Otherwise, we'll have to do it again. I hesitated. We had been together for less than 3 months. Was it too quick to agree to marriage? What about the 999 steps we agreed on? Peter seemed to sense my thoughts. Don't burden yourself. It's just shooing away flies. His tone was light, almost casual. Wouldn't proposing be that casual? How can you skip the red wine, roses, chocolates, followed by a lavish dinner and citywide fireworks? I hesitated further. The ring he gave me was obviously expensive, with a diamond at least 3 times larger than the one William had given me. It's fake, Peter said, sensing my uncertainty, and sliding the ring onto my finger. I laughed as I hung up the phone. Some people just think they're clever. Dancers unable to dance, painters unable to hold a brush, singers losing their voice, or social media stars losing their looks, all crucial for their survival. For me, dance wasn't just a career, it was a dream and life itself. I visited the art troupe to see Sue. She stood outside the practice room, looking through the glass door at others dancing. Her expression touched me deeply. Sue wasn't a prodigy, she became our troupe's lead dancer solely through hard work. The troupe leader had said, unfortunately, her choice in men wasn't good. I had chosen the Children's Art Museum for work. Cindy was already studying there, and I took up the job of picking up and dropping off the kids. I made my sister's life more leisurely, and she taunted me about it. Cindy, you better support your uncle in the future. Whether you get an aunt depends on you. Cindy readily agreed. From then on, I had the opportunity to interact with Sue. Every time after school, I would ask about her child, and she never tired of answering, trying to adapt to this new life. The only worry was that Sue often danced secretly, testing her injured foot. I sat in the parents' rest area, my eyes fixed on her, palms sweating. The rest of the story you all know. She fell. I helped her up, and we finally started our relationship, eating, dating, kissing. The feeling of being in love was great. Sue was sweeter and softer than I had imagined. I regretted not being bolder back then. As for Susan, I declined firmly. Women like her are common in life, thinking they are young and beautiful, believing that by offering themselves, men won't refuse. They think conquering men means conquering the world. William not only blinded his eyes but also clouded his judgment, choosing stones over stars. I thank him. The only thing he did wrong was that since he had chosen Susan, he shouldn't have lusted after a past flame. He handed the disgusting old engagement ring to both Sue and me. I subtly hinted to the boss of the software company that our African branch needed people to build it up. William was sent away with a plane ticket. It took half a year for someone to operate on Susan's leg in a scene identical to Sue's injury. However, her luck was a bit worse, she broke both her shin and ankle. My wedding with Sue was half a year later. Peter, seek likes and comments online to wish us blessings. May all the lovers in the world finally become one.